a demo?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the debate for the NAACP Presidential Forum. Candidates Forums. My name is Chris Porter, and I will be your moderator for this evening. Quick note about me: I have been a resident of Washington State since about 2005. Very active in politics. I'm a King Conservation supervisor, heavily devoted to the environment, and a member of the NAACP. Tonight's forum will allow these candidates to showcase their strengths, their hopes, and their wishes in the best direction as to lead the organization. Again, we're going to give these candidates an opportunity to showcase themselves. There are some ground rules that I want to make clear, but before that, I want to make sure about the election reminder. The election reminder is that the election will take place November 21st from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And if you are an active member and eligible to vote, you will receive an email and it will allow you to log in and cast your vote. If you do not receive one, and believe that you should be eligible to vote, you will need to direct an email to secretary@seattleking-county-naacp.org and make sure your email is updated and they have the most current information on you to get your ballot to be able to cast your ballot for the next president. And again, that is November 21st from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. Some housekeeping in terms of how the forum will work is that we're all looking for candidates to simply showcase themselves as best as possible. And that is embodied in a body of respectful communication and disallowing personal attacks, addressing the question and not to one another, and being mindful of the time. There will be typically a 2-minute response time to most of the questions, and I'll certainly indicate if there is more or less time. We'll begin by introduction of the candidates. I see you all. Thank you. First, we'll begin with Erwin Chappell. And Erwin, I'd like you to take 2 minutes to introduce yourself and why you think you should be the next president.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening. I'm honored to be here with you tonight. My name is Erwin Chappell, and I'm running for president of the Seattle-King County NAACP. I'm a native Seattleite who grew up here in the Central District, and I graduated from O'Day High School with honors, and then from there went on to Washington State University. And I went to Clark University for my professional degree in leadership. I've served honorably for my community for the past 31 years as an officer in the Seattle Fire Department. And I currently serve on the executive committee on the Grant Development Committee. I also served as a parliamentarian. Due to recent events and challenges, I decided that I wanted to step up and provide the branch with leadership and guidance. We're going to need the collective knowledge, skills, and abilities of everyone to fight this dreaded social construct called racism. So I wanted to jump there and put my hat in. I'm aware of the branch's shortcomings, and so in order to be transparent, we know that the branch has lacked a little bit of organization, unity, and efficiency of operation. This may have been demonstrated, you may have seen, heard, or read. All of these challenges I intend to improve. I'll be a leader who is thoughtful, who will bring people together and not be divisive. I'll keep them focused on the task at hand. And with the help of a properly trained executive committee, I will help them be organized and prepare to generate outcomes and performance measures that will dictate our successes. I will lead with awareness, and I will also be inclusive, not criticism or self-righteousness. I'm going to be focused on these issues of civil rights, racial injustices, social disparities, things of that nature. So if I'm elected president, it will be my priority to fight for the equal protections of our community's rights. The NAACP has never been perfect, but the leaders before knew how to work within the organization and to continue to stay focused on the issues. I'm running for president because of my commitment to the mission, my community, and the vulnerable. So I'm here to ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Erwin. Next up, Dante Damper. And again, Mr. Damper, showcasing yourself. Why should you be the next president?
Absolutely. Good evening, community. I am Deontay Damper. I serve on the board as the LGBTQ chair for the NAACP King County. Just to give you a little history about where I've been, I actually started doing my advocacy work within POCAN. I know all community members know about POCAN, the People of Color Against AIDS Network. It's been around for almost 33 years, providing resources towards community. There I worked as the only peer in the state, helping in the spaces of health disparities. Within the spaces of working with the NAACP, I've been there to protect, educate, and build community for the civil rights that has gone forgotten about when it comes to LGBTQ rights within our Black community. There has been a huge disconnect, and I'm very grateful to be under the leadership, under two leaders in this space. Due to the fact of the social impacts of COVID and the injustices of the community, we need a leader that doesn't go off of what they read on social media. I'm talking about actually and authentically showing up. As I have been, I've currently worked on the board within the spaces of providing grants to BIPOC communities, working in the spaces, working with our religious chair for father and son conferences, housing, religion, etc. I've been there to show up. As a leader, I will continue to show up, and don't mean any disrespect toward any of my people that are running against me, but it's one thing to talk about it, but it's a real big difference to be about it. And that's why I'm running for president for the NAACP King County. Thank you.
Thank you, Dante. And next up, we have Carolyn Riley Payne. And Carolyn, if you can showcase yourself and tell everyone why you should be the next president. Oh, you'll need to unmute yourself. Carolyn, we can't hear you, so you may need to increase your volume.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes. And if you can increase your volume, I think everyone would be able to hear you as well.
All right. I'm Carolyn Riley Payne, and I'm running for the presidency of the Seattle King County NAACP because I have served in this community for the last 30 plus years. I bring to this community strategies. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm an aunt, I'm a friend, I'm a colleague. I'm a member of the Christ Spirit Church. All of these things make me who I am. So as I come to you to as president, I'm currently serving as president. And in this space, I have brought the community respect back to the NAACP. I'm working on rebuilding with my executive committee and with the community. I'm working on reconnecting. We have done some amazing things during this COVID time since I've been president since April of this year. I was interim president and made a president in April, and we have worked on numerous first time things. We worked on having forums, being out in the street in COVID times, registering people to vote. We had our first virtual Freedom Fund, all of these things that we are doing and have been doing during the COVID time has been under my leadership. I have the gentlemen that are running against me are currently serving on the board of the NAACP under my leadership. And truly, we have had some difficult times this last 6 months or year, but we're working through them. We're healing first internally as well as externally. We're still working to build ourselves, a stronger committee. We're looking for volunteers. Lots of things we did not get a chance to do that we were going to do because we got right in the midst of COVID and it disrupted everybody's life, and it disrupted the community and our ability to connect with the community. We had to redesign and rework, and we're still doing that. And because I am a servant leader, I'm here to serve. It is not about me. I have a community recognition last year that was very humbling. It was not from the NAACP, it was from the community. And it's about my work with children. It's about the impact that I've had on thousands of young people's lives that are now adults and have their own children coming through a program that I was in charge of working with a committee. I do none of these things alone. I understand what it means to lead. I understand. I worked on in many jobs, at many levels. I've developed organizations. I've served. I can follow as well as I can lead. And in my leading, I empower those that work with me on a team to go out and spread their wings, do what they need to do. I trust the people that are working on the committee. There's only one spokesperson for the NAACP, and that's me as the current president. But all of the things that people are doing, they're doing because I give them that space to do so. I empower them. I direct them. I mentor them. I train them. I'm there. I'm out with them. I don't ask anybody to do anything that I don't do and I won't do. So I am asking for your vote because I want to do more. I want to take us to the next level. We are now out of the healing process. We now can get busy and everybody can come and be a team and work together and not have their feelings in the way or not be overly sensitive about what has happened in the past. We're moving forward. We're making impacts because racism is alive and well in Seattle. And we have a lot of work to do. And there is a lot of work to be done for everybody. There's enough work to go around. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. I have a series of questions for the next hour or so. And given the time, I'll give people about 3 minutes to make their response. At the 2-minute, 30-second mark, I will just simply say you have 30 seconds left and allow you time to wrap up your comments. The first question I'll begin with will go to Carolyn. So Carolyn, what specific qualifications and specific skills and specific experiences do you have that make you best suited to be president?
I'm a leader. I'm a proven leader. I've had positions that have elevated me into leadership in my personal life, in my professional life, and within the NAACP. I bring leadership. I bring communications, strategic thinking, strategic planning to this position. I bring a heart, a kind heart. I bring an understanding of what needs to be done and what this organization is about. I bring that because I worked in my personal professional life as a teacher. I worked in the federal government as an operations manager. as a human resources manager, as a branch chief supervising many people. I mentor, I bring mentorship, I bring organizational skills, I bring laughter and fun to the organization. That's what I bring to this position. I also bring the ability to bring people together to work as a cohesive group. I bring an ability to get people to do work, to think outside the box. When I was working with my young people in the AXO program, I had the ability to help them see things in themselves and abilities in themselves that they didn't think they had. I have that ability. I have the ability to keep calm in the storm. To redirect. I can help direct where we need to go. I can see the big picture. I work on what's at hand, always keeping the big picture in mind. I can, what else? I bring the greatest ability is my connections, my ability to get people to do things, to work together as partners. I worked over the years in this community at the national level, keeping our local and
You have 30 seconds.
Okay, in line with the national, not forgetting who we are and what we're doing. So I bring all of those skills to the table.
Okay, and Dante, same question for you. What specific qualifications, specific skills, and specific experiences make you best positioned to be president?
Yes. I would actually start off by saying that I have empathy, I have passion. I think one of the things about it, and I'm so proud of everybody on our board that has these great experiences, college experiences. I came from the trenches. It speaks volumes when you can go through tragedies and turn them into triumphs. I speak for community unity. There has not been a time where community has not seen me show up. When the storm hit the NAACP, I made sure I showed up for community to explain where we're at and where we could go. Creating the partnerships. So when I say community unity, I mean actually having authentic partnerships with current issues within the spaces of community. That's not to say we're far back, but also the one thing that makes me stand out as president, or the skills that I have, is I actually read my bylaws. Our bylaws are extremely essential for leading and protecting this community, for people to actually know where NAACP is coming from. We've been having these bylaws since 1909. And it wasn't until a former president reached out to me and said, you have leadership skills, but do you know what NAACP leadership skills look like? And since then, I've been in my bylaws, and since I've been in my bylaws, I've been about accountability. Accountability is key. And that doesn't mean being around people and not telling them the truth about themselves. I don't mind shaking the table when it comes to protecting, educating, and building my community. Thank you.
And Erwin, again, same question. What specific qualifications, specific skills, and specific experiences make you best suited to be the next president?
Thank you, Chris. My skill sets, qualifications, and experiences are through extensive training in the area of leadership and communication. I've had a lot of training through the city of Seattle and in my occupation at the Seattle Fire Department. Outside of that, I have engaged with the community as the president and founder of the 100 Black Men of Seattle. That's a local chapter of a more national chapter of over 90 chapters in the nation, and it's a mentoring organization. The skill sets that I have, including being able to lead a team, I've been a team captain in team sports all my life. Also, I'm great at problem solving. I have an ability to think quick and adjust to rapidly changing environments and conditions. And I have years of planning and project management experience. I've had a variety of training and had to use communication skills for both written and verbal uh, uh, instances. I've been on numerous number of committees and projects, and I've been able to bring people together to organize them to achieve its goals and objectives in a timely manner. I have organizational skills that help me prioritize. And just like President Carolyn said, to see the bigger picture, to create a vision, and to work efficiently and productively. So those skill sets I bring to this position. But like Deontay said, being able to know your bylaws. And when I say know them, not browse them, but actually know them. But also know that there is room for improvement because we just had a pandemic. And that pandemic changed the dynamics of how that bylaw gets applied. So those are the things that we have to do as leaders is we have to identify those business processes and those things that we know have a gray area, and then we provide some clarity for that. So in that case, my preparation and my ability to lead is to be able to work under pressure, identify those business practices, identify those things that we need to improve, and to set forth diverse groups of people so that they can have a common goal and they can work on that project and show some type of a work plan objective. Okay. The other thing that I've done is I've been on many committees. Most recently, the Racial Social Justice Initiative Change Team. I'm on the Workforce Equity Planning Advisory Committee, and I've served on the Seattle Public Schools African American Male Scholar Advisory Committee. And I've had the pleasure of working with some brilliant people who have given me wisdom and understanding.
Thank you, Erwin. The next question I have will, and we'll go back and start with you, Erwin, is tell us about your relationship and your accomplishments within the Seattle-King County NAACP.
Okay, my relationship started, I have a mentor, Judge Johnson, who I admire and who inspired me to get involved and thus has compelled me now to run for president. I'm serving on the Grant Development Committee, and in that position, I was able to help us secure a grant from the Seattle Foundation. Previously, I served as the parliamentarian, and I was able to give advice. I was able to facilitate meetings, and I was able to interpret the bylaws for the committees, for the president. So I had a varied role in that, and it gave me broad experience in working with the members of the committee. So my relationship and accomplishments, they have been varied. The latest thing that I've done is been involved with instituting or actually creating a 60-day strategic plan for the branch. And so with that, I've been able to try to move the organization forward towards some of these processes that we need to take care of in order for us to get organized and to have a more efficient operation. So with that being said, those are some of my accomplishments. But the thing about what you said about relationship comes when the president should establish partnerships. We should encourage collaboration with other grassroots organization. So I feel that that's one of the major functions of a president, is to foster relationships and create a network, because social change needs a broad-based movement. So we need to work with people. We need to be able to communicate with our community. And so that would be my relationship. And then finally, I will just say this. During the COVID time, we have been passing out masks. We have been employing people to vote, to get them registered, and even if they were registered, to make sure that they vote. So we had to get out the vote campaign. So those are things that we have accomplished, as Carolyn said. And the final thing I'll say is that
You have 30 seconds.
something that we did was get this branch back to solvency. And I thank Carolyn and Deontay, who were both on the board, that we persevered and we were able to accomplish that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Deontay, same question. Tell us about your relationship and your accomplishments with the Seattle King County NAACP.
Absolutely. It started in the spaces of what I was doing in my volunteer time. I did a lot of jail advocacy, and I was actually working on a case and I could not seem to get them out. So I came to the NAACP. And if anybody was there during the membership meeting, I sat there for a couple of minutes and they talked about all the things that they wanted to do in community, but they left out the LGBTQ community, which I thought was very essential, especially when we are talking about Black communities and elevating, we have to be inclusive. So let's just say I gave some very choice words, and it was Claude Brufect who actually recommended that I be the LGBTQ chair. And when it comes to my accomplishments, is one, I've been very clear on my space with attendance. I probably only have missed 1 or 2 meetings. Throughout that, I have been able for us to participate in the very first Pride event, which is historic for the NAACP King County, let alone being a part of the group for ethnic studies when it comes to LGBTQ education. So thank you very much, Tracy Castro-Gill. Within that space, also, I think one of the biggest accomplishments for me is to be a part of an organization and be at the forefront when it comes to having conversations about one of our first pandemics that we've all experienced, which is HIV in the Black and Brown communities. For me to be the chair of this position, let alone openly positive, and talk to community about how we are still living in a pandemic, is amazing. And I appreciate Siddiqa Sakin and Carolyn Rowley-Payne for allowing me to be in that space and know that it's an essential conversation that we need to have. Continuing on, I didn't just stop there. I partnered with our religious chair, Tremaine Palms, with our Father and Son Conference. Andre Taylor was also a representative there. Partnered with New Hope Baptist Church. I created the census partnership this year that we've done year round. And very grateful for Urban League, a metropolitan Seattle, to actually open up the spaces for us when no one else was looking for us. I just so recently, one of my main things is having the discussion with mental health. Me and the former police accountability chair, Terry Rogers Camp, started our mental health events partnering with Federal Way Black Collective, Progress Pushers, and Public Health.
You have 30 seconds.
It's amazing to do that because I don't think we have a lot of conversations about civil rights, but I think that a lot of us and a lot of our Black and Brown brothers and sisters and trans and non-binary folks don't have a time to decompress with the climate that we have right now. So providing that partnership, we've done 3 events already and have another one coming this December. And that partnership is essential because we always think about Seattle when we think about civil rights, not the whole diaspora of King County. Thank you.
Thank you. And Carolyn, again, the question to you, tell us about your relationship and your accomplishments with the Seattle King County NAACP.
Well, I've had an intimate relationship with this body for many, many years, having served on the committee under the last 8 or 9 presidents. I have been able to bring stability to this organization. And I appreciate the acknowledgement of my peers here about what they're been able to do under my leadership. Financially, we have become sovereign. We were in debt. I was able under my leadership to get us financial, increased our membership we tripled almost our membership from April till now. We have an Unsung Heroes program. I've worked with the ACSO program, Academic, Cultural, Technological, and Scientific Olympics, for many years, 40 years. And with that, I have been able to have not only mentorship, but develop young people that are now working with within the NAACP. I'm a proven leader in those regards. We celebrated the high school seniors when we realized that they were not going to graduate. The community works, we had our first actual virtual forums this year under my leadership. We talked about the voter registration, the candidates forum, the Superior Court judges forums, the pandemic. We have an excellent health program going on in which we inform the community about what's going on daily with the pandemic and how it impacts them. Not only what you hear on the TV, but also how it's impacting the diseases that we have, high blood pressure, heart disease. So that has happened under my leadership. We talked about, Erwin mentioned distributing masks.
You have 30 seconds.
10,000 masks to be exact. We highlighted Black-owned businesses. We encouraged people to go where to go to when you were going out to eat and you were going to buy stuff, who was open and how to get there. Those are the kinds of things that I have done for this organization, with this organization. Now, truly, it's a committee, but under my leadership and under my direction, and a lot of these are my ideas. So I have been able to do that, and I bring that. I want to continue that. We have
Carolyn,
also.
I want to thank you.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you. The next question I have, I'll begin with Deontay. And so the next question for you, Deontay, is, what do you see the role of the NAACP as in our community? Did you hear?
Yes, absolutely. I did hear you. Thank you very much, Chris. The role of the NAACP is exactly what it should have been. I mean, as it has been since 1909. And we have been in a space where the tides have changed. So when people look at the NAACP, it's in the space of being a social circle, but we actually really needed to be in the space of civil rights, defining what is civil rights. Unfortunately, we have been in a space where, yes, we are doing really well, where we're in the green, where we have money, but we have to take accountability where we're at. So that being said, we don't have any lawyers or we don't have a criminal justice chair. We don't have a police accountability chair. Our role needs to be to put that at the forefront, start reaching out to more of our lawyers in our community and more activists in our community. I think that there's been a really big disconnect between our elders and our young folks out here and our abolitionists. I see you out here. And I think that NAACP should be at the forefront of meeting everyone in the middle and bringing us all together. There's been a very big disconnect because I think that all of our accomplishments that we have done this year, especially through the storm, have been great. But one of the main things that wasn't done is the fact of what we need to do is use our bylaws to actually start showing people exactly what we stand for. And actually, our role is to be in unison. We've always been about community unity. And I think that that's something that people have been very discouraged from where the NAACP is at. And I think that it's important for someone to take the leadership that already has their boots to the ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Then I want to follow up that question with Erwin. And
yes, Chris.
What do you see the role of the NAACP as in our community?
Well, Chris, I agree with a lot of what Deontay said. The NAACP has to regain its position as the preeminent civil rights organization. And it has to fulfill its mission to ensure political, educational, social, and economic equality for all citizens. And so with that being our mission, well, it's one thing to have a mission, but then the other thing that has to follow up is it has to be some type of engagement we have to do a better job of engaging our citizens and finding out what it is they need. And once we find out what they need, we have to set forth a task to accomplish those needs. And so whether it be legislative policies, whether it be combating systemic and institutional processes that negatively impact our community, those are the things that we have to do. And we have to show by measures and outcomes the community what we are doing. If we don't communicate that, they have no idea what we are actually accomplishing. So we have to bridge that gap. And like Deontay said, we are in a time now where social unrest and the glaring effects of systemic and institutional racism are driving the interest in activism. And so with that being the case, we need to use all of those talents, those folks that want to do the good work and fight the good fight. We need to bring them to the table. And so the NAACP has to be a galvanizing force. We can't be divisive. We have a lot of people that sit there and if they show up, sometimes they show up and they're divisive. Sometimes they're not always, inclusive when it comes to everyone. So we want to make sure that we're inclusive for everyone and that we don't turn people off and that we begin to work, collaborate together, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take all of us. This is going to be a slow turn. It took us this long to get here, but we do have the youth. We do have the elders. We have everybody in between. But we have to work together, and the NAACP has to facilitate that. We have to provide that impetus to go forward and do that. And we can't do it, like Deontay said, you can't do it by talking. You have to perform. You have to have action.
Thank you. And again, for Carolyn, same question. What do you see the role of the NAACP as in our community?
All of the things that the other two mentioned, but I want to make sure that the community understands that just because we don't have a civil rights, board positions filled, does not mean that we're not working with the community. It does not mean that we're not working with attorneys from the Lauren Miller Bar Association, individual private attorneys on the issues that are coming forth to us. Truly, because of the pandemic, we have not been able to fill a lot of our positions. We had a lot of people, volunteers, but we have not been able to fill those positions. That doesn't mean that they're not important and that the work is not getting done, because we are working, continuing to partner with community people, community groups, and with civil rights. When you have, we're talking about civil rights and the bylaws. Well, we have to understand the bylaws ourselves so that we can make sure that we explain it to everybody else. But bylaws and how we support Black in our community and how we support Black companies and organizations is what civil rights is all about. We have never been a social organization. Civil rights, this branch has never been a a socialist club. We have always fought and stayed true to who we are. We have always reached out and gotten committee members from every place we could get. In the ministers come in. We don't have we have a minister on our board, but we use ministers across the board, just like we use attorneys. So don't the lack of does not mean that it is not happening, because we need those kinds of skills when we are still fighting the 25 cases right now we have for discrimination, and those are just in the school districts. So I'm just my commitment is to continue.
You have 30 seconds.
To support Black-owned businesses and continue to support the civil rights of all people, because that's what we are about.
Thank you. The next question, again, I'll start with Deontay. What are your priorities in the first 90 days if you are elected, and what are your plans to accomplish them?
Absolutely. The first things first, we know that the big issue that we've had in the spaces has been finance. I think it'd be very clear to have a bondable treasurer. We don't have a bondable treasurer now, and that is extremely essential when we've already promised the community that we would have a finance committee. That will be one of the first things that I would do. And then on top of that, I already have community unity. I have relationships with community. So adding more people on the board, more diversity on the board. I think that in my first 90 days, one of the main communities that I want to reach out to, because we talk about religion as Black and brown folks, but we always we look in one lens as if it's just in the spaces of Christianity. But I do know that there's a group out there, our Muslim brothers and sisters out there in Redmond, the MAPS program, which has continuously tried to reach out to the NAACP County over the years. And they have talked about discrimination in their communities and emailed us for calls to action. Within my first 90 days, I would definitely have a call to action with Ms. Anila and come out there and support our Muslim brothers and sisters. I think one of the other things that we need to do is start creating more financial literacy programs available. We got Curtis Calhoun and Josiah out here that are already doing the work. We need to start implementing that so we can actually start bringing them into spaces for service plans for our Black and brown sisters that are incarcerated. We actually also need to have more conversations in the spaces of AXO. AXO, I would partner with Seattle Public Schools and have AXO be a part of curriculum. Since kids are sitting in front of their computers at this point, AXO would be so essential to add that to curriculums especially for our high school students who could possibly even be getting credits for exactly what AXO's there for. That's what I would do in my first 90 days. Also in that space, I would also mend relationships. We keep on talking about these grants and all that, but we are NAACP. We're one of the longest civil rights organizations out there. We make the grants. We build them by being out there in the forefront. So creating more forums and community forums of hearing what community needs from us, not what we think that they do. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Erwin, same question. What are your priorities in the first 90 days if you're elected, and how will you go about accomplishing that?
Yes. My first act would be to look at our internal processes, and much like Deontay said, we need to bring more diversity and more talent to our executive committee. But we need to provide that committee with training and resources so that they can perform at their highest level. We need to build trust with one another, because as we know that there are some challenges that we've faced internally regarding keeping and creating a positive and fun atmosphere for people to work together. So that's one of the responsibilities of a leader, is to provide a good workplace and a positive and fun atmosphere in which you come to work and to do the work. And I think we all can understand that people who are happier and are positive will be more productive. So I would look at that committee, look at the leadership, have them do a quarterly planning, use a quarterly planning tool so that we can establish some goals and we can look back and see if we've met our performance measures, which actually will lead, if we are meeting those, will lead to some successes. My next thing would be to develop a strategic map and a plan for the Seattle King County NAACP. I've given two to previous administrations that have not been used. And so I feel like we have kind of limited our progress by not doing that. So that would be one of my first things to do, because we have to think about the greater scope of what we're doing. And then we need to identify and prioritize those things that we want to accomplish. For instance, police accountability, new legislation like affirmative legislation like I-1000, or the new George Floyd Justice Act, HR 7120, or establishing that voter registration will be one of our priorities. But you have to create that vision, and you have to make sure that people know what they're working towards. And that's the responsibility of a leader. My next thing would be, as Deontay stated, would be our finances. We have to make sure that we're using sound accounting principles. We got to know that we have to be transparent in our reporting. We have to have a budget that supports our actions.
You have 30 seconds.
And then we have to have those measures that help us increase our funding streams. And as well as having a fiduciary sponsor, because we're not a 501c3. So we can create additional funding streams through a fiduciary sponsor. Those are the things I would concentrate right away in my first 90 days. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. And Carolyn, again, the question to you, if elected, what are your priorities in the first 90 days and how will you go about accomplishing them?
Well, the first 90 days, I would continue what we've already started. First, I'd try to build an office. We would get us an office and a staff that will staffing plan that will help us meet the needs of the community. I would work on our issues with the housing that is clearly needed right now in COVID. Training, we definitely would put in place. External training, internal training, and we would also make sure that we practice that information on a regular basis. Right now, people have the information, but we don't necessarily always use that. So we'll create a better place for people to ask their questions, get people on the board that don't want to leave as soon as 8 o'clock comes, that want to put in some time and do the work, so that we can go out in the community and find out what the community needs and wants. It's not about what we want to do. It's not about how our making the plan. It is the plan that we get from the community. And then once we get that information, put that in a plan and go back out and work the plan. Both of them have mentioned the bonding of the treasurer. That's very, very important, but you can't bond the treasurer when you don't have any money. So now that we have some money and we will have a treasurer, then we can do that. We can bond that position. We can also increase our funding. We do have to find a revenue source because we have bills and we have to continue funding coming in. So that is something that I would be working with my team to establish. I would also be working with the city to have programs that are available through the city for our youth. Now, Deontay said partner with the school district, Seattle Public Schools. Well, AXO over the years have partnered with every school. And you have 30 seconds. To make AXO a part of their curriculum and and we get students from all over. So I would continue to work with the chairperson of AXO to do that. And then I would just create a team that wants to work, that's in service to the community and not self-service. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, actually, I'll start with you again, Carolyn. And my question to you is, in the recent past, the NAACP has not been seen as relevant and a receptive voice in this community. How do you plan on addressing that moving forward?
Yeah, we've heard that we're not relevant in the community and we're not out and being seen. We are in places, we have a committee, a strong committee that's working in the community every day. I plan to allow that to continue. I plan to find other people that want to work in the community and put them to work. I plan to be out there myself. We were accused of not being in CHOPS, and we were down in CHOPS doing voter registration. We were down in CHOPS. We had a religious service in CHOPS. I would continue to try to make sure that all of our committees had strong people leading them so they could be in spaces all over. No one person can be every place. So it is good to have trained committee people that are out there, that are speaking and that are working and that are getting the work done. We will continue to partner with the community, and we just have to sell ourselves. We have to toot our own horn. We have to let the community know exactly the many things that we are doing.
Thank you. The next one, Irwin, I'll put this question to you. In the recent past, the NAACP has not been seen as relevant and receptive voice in the community. How do you plan on addressing that moving forward?
Well, the key phrase to that is moving forward. We know that there's been challenges in regards to being able to quantify what we're doing. As Carolyn said, and but I'm saying now, we have to change that narrative. We need to regain the trust of our community, and we need to be present. We need to be engaging. We need to ask the questions that need to be asked. But not only that, we need to provide the solutions that they need. And that goes back to providing services to the community by being in the community. And so going forward, we have to use our community engagement committee to create action plans. We need to be able to connect and build partnerships through that committee so that we know, or we have our pulse on what is going on. This work that we're trying to do is fought on many fronts, and we need to be able to coordinate and communicate with others who are doing that. Our advocacy and our leadership as regard to an organization has to be there. People look at the NAACP brand. They look at the history of the NAACP, but we can't look at it as it's just a history. It has to be current. We have to be doing those things that they did back in the day that is chronicled. We want to do that. So in order for us to be relevant, in order for us to be receptive, we have to engage. We have to be present, and we have to find ways to give the results that are being accomplished to the community and to the world in general. Thank you.
Thank you. And Deontay, in the recent past, again, the NAACP has not been seen as relevant or receptive voice in the community. How do you plan on addressing that moving forward?
Absolutely. I think it's be authentic. You know, we have dealt within the spaces of this board. We look, some of us have thought that we don't have our boots to the ground because there's been people on the board that have been elitists, and we dealt with classism. So being held accountable for what it appeared the NAACP has looked at the past, having open conversations about how the finances looked in the space, but also in the spaces of moving forward. The most essential part about this question is we're bringing back community. We are NAACP Seattle, King County, meaning that we have Auburn out there where our indigenous people are coming up missing and nobody is following through in that space. Morier Echoes out here in Seattle went missing, and there hasn't been accountability on police on where's the follow through on that. Kent, Des Moines, Berrien, we need to start having more conversations about how we help them advocate for civil rights out there, protecting our Black women out there in the areas of Des Moines, Federal Way, SeaTac. I've also noticed about when we talk about moving forward, that's actually having open conversations with NAACP about how we protect our sex workers that are out there in the community, providing more needle exchange programs, or advocating for city council out there in SeaTac in Federal Way.
You have 30 seconds.
We need to actually start holding our boots to the ground in the spaces of figuring out how to show up for our people that are going through those spaces in recovery, and advocating for them in their space of knowing that we are here for you. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question. I'll start with Carolyn, and it's a rather long, sort of meaty question here, so I beg your indulgence on this one. The world is experiencing multiple pandemics, including COVID-19, police brutality, racial injustice. How do you plan on effectively engaging with the community and the membership as the president of the NAACP during all of this?
I plan, that is a long one. I plan to continue to work through my committees to engage the community, to get the word out, to get out with technology. Well, technology has to play a big role because the pandemic is not going to go away anytime soon. So technology has to play a big role. We've already started our digital divide information workshops with partnering with people to get information so that we can start informing our community, working with our community, getting them into the technology age, helping them people get jobs, better jobs by training, by working with the technology experts as mentors. I plan to continue to work with the community, other communities on policing accountability, police engagement. Those things do not stop just because we have a pandemic. And so we'll have to use we will be using more technology, and we will be training others how to do that. One of the things that we found with this pandemic, like in our schools, we weren't ready. Our kids weren't ready. Our parents aren't ready. So we're going to have to figure out ways to work with them and work with the technology communities. We already have a committee working on that, and with education in our education and as education sector, we're working with them and in the school districts to identify and create ways to improve that digital divide. With police killings, we want to get policies in place to mandate that we have investigations, and we want to help direct that. In fact, we want to be a part of that. We will be a part of that. So it's all of this has got to be done very carefully because, like I said, we're in a pandemic. And so everything has to be coordinated, and we will be doing that within our branch.
Thank you. Deontay, I want to give that question to you as well. Again, the world is experiencing multiple pandemics, including COVID-19, police brutality, racial injustice. How do you plan on effectively engaging the community and the membership as the president of the NAACP at this time?
Absolutely. And I can honestly tell you now, I've already done it. Throughout the spaces over the past 4 months, I have been partnering again with Public Health, Federal Way Black Collective, Progress Pushers, our health committee, to provide mental health resources for our community members. And throughout, I've actually already done it 3 times, and we've done it and you're actually speaking to an online therapist throughout that space. I think that giving people that key is also leading people in. Like NAACP is showing up for me when I don't know how to show up for myself, or I'm trying to figure out how to navigate through this. Technology is extremely important. So I think that we just need to start having more community forums with actually how to navigate through that, and holding, not with the money that we even have now, we still have an opportunity to start paying private tutors to start teaching some of our students out there. I think that one of the things when we talk about our young kids out there that are actually going to school. We don't have enough conversations with kids who are considered special needs. We need, like, I think in those spaces, we actually need to start having more conversations on how to hire more distant learning technology teachers in this space. And I thank you.
Thank you. Erwin, I want to put this question to you. Again, we are dealing with COVID-19, police brutality, racial injustice. How do you plan to address those issues?
Yes.
Moving forward.
Yes, Chris. Moving forward, we all know that we are living in unprecedented times. The president, if he is going to lead the organization or if they're going to engage with the community, they have to be accessible and they have to communicate, and they have to communicate well, clearly, concisely. They also have to be a galvanizing force, bringing people together in order to negotiate, persuade, inspire, motivate, whatever that is. And then I think it was said before, we got to create partnerships and so that we can create a broad-based movement that is crucial to this social change we're seeking. There's a lot going on. There is a lot going on. And you have the injustices in the Seattle public schools. You have wage inequality. You have police accountability. You have brutality. You have mental health. So we're experiencing a lot of things, and it's across a board. But the one thing that we can do as presidents is bring people together. We don't have to do everything, but we have to know who can do what. And being able to identify that means that you have to engage with folks who can give you the picture of what's going on. Now, as far as using technology, well, we have to use social media. We have to use any online presence that's going to help us in this fast-paced world improve our organizational processes. And then we have to be able to, I would say, tailor that towards our unique mission, because we have to figure out what do we do and what do we do well. And then we have to find out that, hey, if our community needs something else, if they need something, that we're able to give them the reference if we don't have the resources ourselves. Because no one organization can do it by itself, just as no president can do it all by himself. So we have to engage with other folks. We have to embrace the technology, but we have to figure out, how do we do this the best way? How do we do that? And so those things will help us figure out where we are. And the things I said earlier about strategic plans, doing a SWOT analysis to see what your organization does well, what it doesn't do well, those things are important. And technology will help us identify those things. So therefore, we can be more productive.
30 seconds, yes.
And we can meet the needs of our community. Thank you.
So we have one more question planned, but I want to take a slight detour, and we're going to do an elevator pitch. I am a high stakes donor, and you want me to donate to the NAACP. And what I'm going to do is set this for 1 minute, and you have a minute, we're in the elevator, to convince me to give the NAACP the high stakes dollars. And we'll start with Erwin.
Thank you. Hey, listen, the NAACP has a mission to protect people's rights. We need your support in order for us to be able to do the work, the good work that we need to do. We also could use the help in regards to your skills, knowledges, or abilities. Even those type of donations will come in handy. As you can see, there's a lot of social unrest, and there are things going on in this country that none of us are happy about. So we need folks like you to step up, either through donation or through your efforts to be able to help us with the work of the NAACP. Thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn? You have a minute. Convince me to give you this big check.
All right, thank you. We are looking as the NAACP to partner with your organization to do things to end discrimination across the board. It is a big job for all of us, and we can't do it without you. It is with your help that we will be able to make a difference in our community, in our education of our children, and in our workplace, and in the job market. So I'm asking you to make a donation of time, money, and people, services to help us be a better organization. We can only become better with your help. We cannot do it alone. Thank you.
And certainly last but not least, Deontay, you have a minute to convince me to give you this big check.
All right. Hey, Mr. Porter, I heard you talking on the elevator before, how you were talking about the harvest and how you work in the spaces of the healthy eating for community. I think that we need to start fighting with community, with the health and wellness. We have a great health chair by the name of Miss Phyllis. You should join our health committee. As a matter of fact, what is your organization? I think that within our spaces, you can actually be able to help us bring that language out there to advocate for the harvesting and the nourishment for our community's needs. If you become a member today, that would be great. But we would also like for you to get the community as well through the processes. That way we can work together in restoring community and having us pay attention to more of the health and wellness, not just with ourselves, but for our elders and our youth. Come on, Chris, give us that money. No, I'm just playing.
Thank you. Now, we have some questions from the audience, and I'll begin with Erwin. How would you go about recruiting new members?
Membership recruiting is the lifeblood of any organization. There should be a committee formed in regards to recruiting for membership. And within that, we want to make sure that we have people who are of the same age and demographics of the people that we are seeking. One of the things that we want to do is we want to use our social media. We want to use our online presence to do that. We don't want to forget, maybe when COVID is over, if it is ever over, that we still have the face-to-face. But we want to make sure we spread that word. And remember back before I said, they have to see us doing the work in order for them to want to be involved. So we want to make sure that we are giving an imagery as well as a narrative that we are here to do the work of the NAACP. And I believe when they see the products and the successes that we have, our membership will increase just like it has most recently, because people become concerned, they become active when they see injustices. And so when we provide them that space to be able to participate by being engaged, by being receptive, we can recruit. And we want to make sure we recruit all demographics. We want to be inclusive. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. And Carolyn, same question. How will you go about recruiting new members?
The same way I've been doing it before the pandemic and during the pandemic. One-on-one across the board, in newspapers, in any place that there is anybody, I would be asking them to join this organization. I would be recruiting. Everybody has to always be recruiting as members of this school, for the members of this organization. So what I would do is I would highlight what we're done. I'd highlight our successes. I talk about why we need them and their individual skills. And I would ask them to come and join and bring their skills to us to help us be better, to help us do things better. We do a lot of things, and we do a lot of things well, but there are so many things to be done that we have to talk to people where they are, get them engaged, and let them see how they can make a difference with us. And so that's what I would continue to do, what I do all the time. And using social media, using all of the media that's available. See, we forget that not everybody is on social media. So we have to think about that. The good old handshake, well, we don't shake hands anymore, but the good old how are you, just face to face. Not everybody texts. A telephone call, there are ways. Sometimes you just have to go back to what you know and to engage, because we are missing a whole demographics of people, because we emphasize everything has to be digital. And that is not the way to get and continue. This organization wasn't built 100 years ago that way. And believe it or not, this is a grassroots organization, and we still have to remember that and incorporate that in what we do. We can't forget those that brought us this far. So I would think that those are the kinds of things that we would be doing, just what we do all the time.
Thank you. And Deontay, same question. How are you going to go about recruiting new members?
Yes, as what we've always done within the spaces of making sure we're showing up. But also, I just have to give a really big shout out, because when you said that, especially during the pandemic, because it's really, and I think that this has been the key for us to actually getting our message out there when it comes to advocacy, our Black media. And that means our Facts newspaper. That means our Seattle Medium, that has also always been the forefront of Black media out here. We also have to think about Rainer Avenue Radio, which also opened up a space for us to even start the conversation with us even having the debate. It's actually appreciating Converge Media for not even just opening us up the space for this, but it's also for this debate, but it's also being at the forefront of Black issues and holding people accountable. We want to make sure that we're reaching out to all areas of community. And what I mean by that is more community forums out there in Auburn who don't hear from us. The Redmond doesn't hear from us, but they ask for us, and we've mainly been focused on one small area. So going about recruiting members is extremely essential. But I also just want to add, putting in the work is the most important thing. I can't ask you to come to this organization if the funds are wrong. I can't ask you to come to this organization if I had NAACP funds in my account. I can't ask you to come to this organization if I applied for a grant and my organization, my separate organization, is receiving funds. I want to be authentic in the space where I show up for community. So authenticity is the key, and Black media is the power.
Thank you. I'm going to turn back to some of the earlier questions, and one of them had to do with technology. I think all of you are probably aware that in the African American community and communities of color, there is a technology divide. What's your best way to communicate in that technology divide if you know that high-speed internet is not at everyone's home, or everyone doesn't have a smartphone to pick up the latest on Facebook, Twitter, email? I'm going to give you a minute. What's your best way to communicate in that technology divide? And I'll start with Erwin.
Can you repeat that question, Chris?
What's the best way to communicate in the technology divide if we know that in the African American community and communities of color, not everyone has access to high-speed internet, a smartphone to get the latest Facebook posting, email, Twitter, etc.? What's your best way to communicate in that technology divide?
Well, of course, if we have that divide, we have to figure out how to bridge that divide. And one of the things that we can do with that is we can create technology hubs. I believe we have one in Africatown right now that provides that space for people to be able to come and use the technology there to be able to communicate. You have libraries, public places. So the thing is that educating people about what is out there for them. But the other part is that we need to advocate that we close that divide by donations and the donation of equipment, the Microsoft. We live in a technology area. So we need to make sure that they're aware of what is going on so that we can advocate that we don't have a divide, that all the children and the youth and even adults
15
have
seconds.
access to those resources and tools. So the NAACP should be in position to advocate for eliminating that divide. We don't want to just be able to work around it. We want to eliminate that divide. Thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn, same question. Knowing that that technology divide exists, how would you communicate or work in it?
Well, I mentioned previously about that divide. Now, we act as if the internet has been around all of our lives. This organization existed 100 years when it started, and without any internet, etc. So we do the same thing. We have to encourage to talk to each other, spread the word, use the newspapers, use the radios, the media, word of mouth. Those are the things that we can put back in practice, and as we work on getting the divide eliminated. We're not going to stop working on that, but until we do, we're not going to give up one for the other, and that's a little bit of how we're moving. Everybody goes to the internet and say go to the internet, but we still have to talk to each other. We still need to spread the word, pick up the phone, etc. Those are the kinds of things that we do that does not take the internet to do. So that's how we would, I would advocate our getting around that divide in our community currently.
Thank you. And Deontay, again, for you, working in that digital divide, that technology divide, how would you work in that, given its presence?
Absolutely, and I'm glad for this question because we already know, well, one, the libraries are closed, so we're not able to access that space. So when I think about that, I envision our seniors and our veterans that are out there, because this is also where the youth can meet the youth can actually meet the elders and get in a space where we can find programs and ways to teach them how to navigate through the technology. You know, I remember my mother, she would go into the spaces where people would have computers and she would literally teach them how to use email in that space. And our youth can do that for our elders. Our elders can also go into the spaces and we can also start highlighting our elders, because let's be very clear. Deontay Damper is not here because I just got here just that way. No, I have a whole bunch of elders that were on tree stumps to help me grow. So in that space, I think that we need to have more in our newsletter. Thank you very much, Jim Provenzano, to start bringing out to our kids so then they know exactly how we got here. And that's how we can be able to, there also won't be a divide. And also I want to throw out there too, to reach out to our other community members as well. We know we're very Black led, but we have an indigenous community that we continuously say we're on Duwamish territory and no one is authentically showing up for them. So giving them some information so then we can meet each other in the middle. We're saying BIPOC, we need to be saying it for a reason because we're showing up for one another. Thank you.
This next question I have, and I'll start with you, Carolyn. And again, it's a pretty weighted question. In the past, there has been confusion about the differences between the roles and responsibilities of the Seattle-King County NAACP chapter and the Area State Conference. As a local branch that operates within a state and national structure, how would you create clear differentiation between state and local decision making?
The state, first of all, I would make sure that people understand the role of the state versus the national structure and the local. There is no, I don't even know where to start with that. There is the differences in what when we go to the state and what the state does versus what we do. We are the Seattle-King County. We have a designated, definite territory. The state is just that. It is the state. So if we can keep the differentiation in our own minds at all times when we're working, then I think there would be no, it would be easier for us to know when things are going to may impact other places. What's happening in Seattle may be happening other places. That's the time that we go to the state and we work with the state. We should be working as the branch. It's not them or us, because we are all one. We are all the NAACP, just like the national. So everything we do flows from the national through the state, through us.
Thank you. And Erwin, I'll put that question to you. And again, because it's a pretty weighted one. In the past, there has been confusion about the differences between the roles and responsibilities of the Seattle-King County chapter and the state area conference. As a local branch that operates within a state and national structure, how would you create clear differentiation between state and local decision making?
Chris, this is a simple function of a president's leadership to me. The confusion is only due to individuals allowing the confusion to exist, and if they haven't established clear lines of territory or emphasis, or what they might call lines of demarcation, right? So, as was stated earlier, the state area conference has a very specific responsibility. They're actually there to help, if needed, when a new branch or unit is coming on board, if they need consultation, things of that nature. But outside of that, there is no reason to have overlap when it comes to that. But the state and a branch can, in a collaborative effort or a joint effort, move towards providing a unified front when it comes to inequalities. But I believe there is a good reason to have a good open relationship. That is necessary. That is essential. But their job in the structure of the national job is to support the local branches. And so there shouldn't be too much of confusion unless the president allows that, or the two groups allow that confusion to be a part of it.
Thank you. And certainly last but not least, Deontay, again, the weighted question. In the past, there's been confusion about the differences between the roles and responsibilities of the Seattle-King County chapter and the state area conference. As a local branch that operates within a state and national structure, how would you create clear differentiation between state and local decision making?
Absolutely. I think it's one of the things that needs to be clear is exactly what because I think that the one thing's for certain and two things for sure, the state is a part of the structure. They are a part of the body. The head is our national, and we as this branch are the arms. So in the meantime, we flow with one another. So I know that this year they participated in the Power of Five, and that was all of us. I think that where the confusion came in, it was when people from our organization started standing against the superintendent, and our branch never really had a in-depth conversation of what that looked like, especially with no backing or merit behind exactly why they wanted to step down, why they wanted that person to step down. So I know a lot of confusion came in there, but I definitely trust the leadership within the spaces of the state. I have reached out to within my own space on how I needed to be navigated. I am also in a chair seat that people have never had before. So I definitely have reached out. Can I do this? Is this okay? What does this look like? So I definitely will say that we all are part of one body. I do think that there has to be some type of, when the leadership that's going to step in at this point has to be able to show what makes us stand out. as NAACP King County, because the state got it going on. The state are doing things in the spaces of policy. That's how they do it. They structure us so we can be in that space. But what makes us stand out? Because it appears that the state is running the NAACP King County, which is not the case. But we need the leadership that makes it perfectly clear on exactly how we all move this body. Thank you.
Thank you. There are, again, some questions coming in from the chat. One of the things I'd like to do is ask each of you how the state of being is for a particular group within our community in the Seattle King County area. So I'll start with Erwin, and I'll ask, as you know it or as you understand it, what is the state of being for the LGBTQ plus community of color here in the Seattle King County? What are they dealing with?
They're dealing with some of the same things that people who are experiencing racial and social justice, they're experiencing discrimination. They're experiencing a lack of resources, a lack of education. They're experiencing a numerous number of injustices and disparities regarding their group. A lack of empathy probably is really evident in some of the interactions. And so therefore, when it comes to shedding light on the community in regards to what their needs are, they haven't had the conversations. It's been stated before. They need to have the conversation. There needs to be the engagement. There needs to be a collaboration of what that community needs. So we need to be more empathetic. We have to be aware of what is going on with the community, and we need to try to solve those issues through education, through resources, through policies. Those things have to be done in order to address the needs of that community. And we have to acknowledge those committees, because we need to acknowledge those communities, because it's important for them to be heard. Their voice needs to be heard.
Thank you. Deontay, what is the state of being for Black women, African-American women, or women of color in the community? What are they dealing with?
Oh, Lord. I don't think we have enough time to talk about misogyny in this community. It's the biggest divide that silenced our Black women. I can honestly think about, like, within my first couple of years, I've seen so many leaders that are women in this space. Trey Holiday, Sade Smith, Terry Rogers Kemp, Katie Hall, Lenise Donaldson. I've watched them be in these, Michelle Merriweather, I've watched them come into these rooms, in these spaces, and us as within our spaces of men in our community have tried to silence Black women. And you can obviously see what just happened a couple of weeks in November. Sisters are doing it for themselves. Not even the space of just Kamala Harris, Twana Noble. Also, I can name a whole bunch of different names, but it's one of those times that where we have to stop silencing Black women. We have to learn how to be inclusive of hearing when we cause harm. And I want to be very clear, because that also adds on to the question that you just asked Erwin. That does include Black trans women who are constantly out there getting killed. Stop acting like it's not supposed to be your conversation, because it is. We have to be more inclusive. We show up so many times when there's police brutality, but when a Black trans woman says that someone is causing harm and she needs to be in a space of feeling safe, you go between Genesis and Revelations to try to figure out how you show up for her. This is the time. When we talk about leadership, you can't dance around the LGBTQ community. You can't dance around, especially our trans women in that space, our lesbian women as well, who advocate for us and go unsung. And now I'm done. I'm sorry, I had a timer. Sorry.
No, actually, you're just about your time up. And Carolyn, for you, what's the state of being for Black men? What are they dealing with in this community?
Black what? Chris, I didn't hear all of your conversation.
What is the state of being for Black men? What are they dealing with in
Black
this community?
Men. Black men dealing with the same things that they've always dealt with. They are dealing with issues of not only race, but their manhood, their livelihood. They're striving to make a living for themselves. Being downtrodden, being at the same things that all of us are dealing with. There's no difference, except they're Black men, and they have in the community and in their households, they have a different role, and as such, that becomes another burden, because they have the burden of trying to what? Not only protect their families, but provide for their families. And so then they have that added burden of trying to figure out how to do that within society that doesn't see them as a whole man. And so they have to then try to incorporate that into their everyday living. And so it is the same struggles that we all have. I don't know that the struggles for any one group is any different or than any other group. I think that you put us all in a pot, and the struggles are the same, the issues are the same, just how we deal with them and how we face them is the difference.
Thank you. One other question I have, and I believe it was Erwin who talked about serving on the Male Advisory Committee. One of the things that was, I would say, uplifting was that the Seattle Public Schools finally acknowledged that the opportunity gap between white students and specifically Black males had gotten so out of sorts that something needed to be done. So an advisory committee was put in place, and we sorted out, and I served on that committee, a number of issues, and we put together recommendations, and it went forward. And from that, an entire department was created in the Seattle Public Schools, the Black Male Achievement, and there's a director, and they're doing excellent work. But what does that say about our educational system, that the biggest school system in the state now requires an entire department to address this lengthening opportunity gap that not only affects Black males, but certainly females and other students of color? I'll give you 2 minutes. What do you think the fix is there? And I'll start with Carolyn.
Well, let's talk about that Black Male Achievement Program. Yes, it is good to have it, and they're doing wonderful things. But what does it say to us that we don't have we couldn't find a Black male to run that program? What does that send to our Black males? What does that tell our young men? But back to the question of what does that
What's the fix?
What's the fix for that?
In addressing the opportunity gap?
I think the fix has started with that Black Male Achievement Program. But you know what? Whatever happens to our Black males impacts our Black females. And it also impacts the other students in the programs or in schools, but specifically for our Black males. It says a lot that they're so far behind that we need a whole department to take care of them. My question would be better than, okay, then what are we doing? How are we measuring that achievement gap? What are we doing to make sure that it works? And then the schools can't do it alone. So how are we helping translate that and transcend that out into the community?
30 seconds.
So I would say that it says a lot that we have that program. It's good that we have it, but it also puts us on notice that we have a lot of work to still do, even with that program in place.
Thank you. And Deontay, I'll give that question to you. The opportunity gap, it's there. It's very wide. We have that department in place. What do you think the fix is?
Absolutely. I just have to respond to the framing of the answer to the last question, because when it comes down to it, MT Parker is essential being in charge of that program. She was dealing with one of the biggest demographics in middle school for Black and brown boys. And if you see the numbers that she did in that school, that's why they put her in place of that program. And she's not just doing it by herself. If anybody out here knows Kevin Loyal and his plight, and he is Black male achievement, they have the tools. We are also a part of the tool set that goes into that car as well. So in order to make sure that it's there, NAACP and other Black-led organizations have to be at the forefront of letting them know what Black male achievement looks like. That's reaching out to other nonprofits, because the kids get them during the day. I mean, the school gets them during the day. It's also what tools are we giving our Black men in our spaces to achieve. But besides the spaces of AXO, what is NAACP King County? How can we add on to the spaces of that? And when we do have conversations when it comes to that, I think a lot of argument and pushback from the program is I don't understand it. Like, there hasn't been a program set up like this in King County. And I think as opposed to us doing the cancel culture, we must give that tell that Black woman to fix her crown, tell Mr. Loyal to fix his crown, and we figure out how we can support, not complain with bogus data that has no backup on how this program's only been started a year. And let me just remind everybody that MT Parker actually opened up the floor for NAACP to actually show up in SPS for meetings, and I really appreciate for that, and will support her in Black male achievement in their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. And Erwin, again, we know about the opportunity gap, the department. I think they're doing wonderful work, but what's the fix? Because it's, to me, amazing that an entire department was needed to tackle this problem.
Yes, first of all, I want to thank everybody that's involved with that, because we do need to support them, and we don't need to criticize. We need to provide support for them. One of the things that we have to focus on is that we are trying to ensure a clear path to higher education. We want careers and even entrepreneurship. We want to give that path to those kids. I think Seattle has the 6th biggest gap, okay? Which, I can't explain that. Nobody can explain that. Why we would have that with the economy and the resources that we have around in this area. We know that it has to be systemic. So the thing is how do we eliminate those systemic things, those racial inequalities? Because we've got to change the disparate suspension and expulsion rates. We know that those things are happening. Our kids need to stay in school, okay? We can't have this zero tolerance for the black and brown kids, but have something different for the other kids, okay? So we got to stop that. We got to make sure that we have resource equity, meaning that we got to target funds to those underserved youth and those kids who need it the most. I mean, that makes sense, okay? We got to improve training and the recruiting of teachers that look like us, look like the kids. That's important. Now, one of the things that was a problem for the Seattle school, the public schools, was
30 seconds.
It wasn't the fact that we just want to criticize and because it's a gender issue. It's because the narrative for Black males in being in positions of higher at executive level is important. That imagery is important. And that's part of the complaint, but the complaint is to the superintendent, not the people who are doing the work. We applaud them. Thank you.
Another question I have from the audience is, what are the strengths of the NAACP and what do you see as some of their challenges? And I'll start with you, Deontay.
I think one of our strengths is that we were the longest running civil rights organization. I believe that our vision for community at this point has been great, but now it's time to turn it into actions. I think that the thing that's been missing, the weaknesses that we have, is just not being transparent. Not being transparent about, and it all comes down to, and this has been something that's went on with NAACP for years, community, organization, and financials. In the spaces, and I know that they both can answer to this, have had issues with holding NAACP funds in their accounts for 3 years, hence why they were removed out of their seats. We have to have more accountability in that space. So that's where our weakness comes in. But the strength comes in is because we all know that we can all show up for one another. And there's other community, our strengths. I think one of our biggest strengths at this time, and this is shout out to Carolyn and this, we've all created some pieces of partnerships, and just continuing to have those partnerships. But also, while we have those partnerships and we sit in the areas of leaderships, it also comes with accountability and transparency. So if we can be in the spaces of being honest to community about exactly where we're at and where we can go, I think we can go to a bigger space. And just with that being said, I just think that we should be very someone that sits in the spaces of leadership cannot have NAACP funds sitting in their account or receive money from grants from NAACP King County.
Thank you. Carolyn, I'll give you this question next. What are the strengths of the NAACP and what are some of the challenges?
Well, one of our strengths is our dedicated and committed members who champion the important issues, that get out there and work. That's our strengths. Our weaknesses is our ability to work dependently. But the other thing is, one of the weaknesses is the lack of transparency that everybody keeps talking about. But to talk about a thing, to make innuendos and about issues that we don't have, we don't tell all the truth about it, and you tell half of it. That is one of our greatest weaknesses of this organization. Blame before you have the whole story, and when you have the whole story, not telling it, just using piecemeal pieces of it to hurt and to embarrass and to slander each other. We don't work together in the organization like we should. We could do more. We could do more better. We could do better. We could do better and be more effective if we worked with each other in a way that brought honesty, trust, and respect. So the lack of respect is one of the things that is one of the weaknesses in this organization. The other thing is the lack of having enough people to do the work. The lack of understanding of what needs to be done and having enough people to do it, and to spread ourselves so thin.
Thank you. And Erwin, before you give your response, I just simply wanted to remind that one of the ground rules is that we would stay away from attacks and really have people give their best response and why they think in the context of these questions, they're best suited to be the next president. So with that, what do you see, Erwin, as the strengths in the NAACP and some of the challenges?
Thanks, Chris, for reminding some of us of that fact. Some of the challenges that we see is I'm going to say some things that are repetitive, but I'm going to say some things that may be unknown, which is the thing about membership is that you have a certain amount of people that will be focused on their particular work. And one of the things that the leadership is supposed to do is provide guidance in regards to how that work is focused. You have a lot of people that have a sense of ownership when it comes to that work, and they become very passionate. But one of the things that the leadership is supposed to do is harness that that passion so that we don't create a divisive atmosphere because we don't agree. And then once again, hiding behind words like transparency, but throwing darts at people because you can. But also giving false information. One of the things that's important about an organization is clear, concise, and accurate information in times of crisis. So one of those things is very evident, as we go forward, and has been present in our committees. But what we do well, which I want to end with, what we do well is that we have plenty of branches. We have intellectual property of things that the branches are doing. We have dedicated people. We have multiracial, multi-generational people that are doing this work. And by doing this work, we are creating and sustaining our organizations with young leadership that will come up and be active.
Thank you. Last questions. Okay, we get to closing statement. To do with having read a lot about Seattle's race history. The Central District was the place where African Americans were allowed to live, and with red zoning. And it's interesting now that in this area, they're being priced out under gentrification as things change. So given that, how would you address that? Because this is very real for a number of residents in the Central District who've lived there for many, many decades. And I'll start with Deontay.
Absolutely. I think that when we talk about gentrification in the Seattle area, it is, of course, we know that it hasn't just affected us in a space. Taking us out of our own community has been very crippling for us. But the thing about it is, and I was telling somebody this in Florida today, like you have no idea how resilient the 206 is, 253 is in this space. We have showed up. So when we talk about gentrification, I think about also the space of economic development in our parks and recs, making sure that we remind the communities that are out there who was here before. Lottie Cross, she was here before. Lacey Steele, he was here before. Reminding people in our parks and the spaces of who was here. But I know that we're talking about the issue of gentrification, not just in the spaces of Seattle, but we, like you said before, we have to talk about redlining. We have to be at the forefront of checking our city council members that are in the outskirts on what their plans are to continue to break us down. Because the minute that we start building something beautiful, here they come to break it apart. So within the issues of gentrification, it's making sure that we hold our city council members and community members accountable. Because we just finished in November, but we have another November coming up. So making sure that we're in the spaces of acknowledging, because we do land acknowledgement for our Indigenous people, and it's as needed. But I would like to also acknowledge that we are in the spaces of our Yesler terraces and our valley areas where we need to continue to just remind community on where we're at. And that's also reaching out to like spaces like the Jackson Apartments on how NAACP can be a part of bringing more Black and Brown people into those spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. And Erwin, I'll give you the question. The issue of gentrification, and what are some of your approaches to deal with that?
Well, first of all, I don't know if everybody is aware, but Seattle is the third highest gentrifying city in the country, which is unacceptable. And that is due to years of segregation, redlining, and urban renewal. So we definitely know that there's a problem with us and dealing with the city government and the policies. We need more affordable housing. We know that the lack of affordable housing has led to the homelessness. We know that there is a pandemic going on, which is actually exasperating that situation. So in order to deal with that, we have to educate ourselves on how we reinvest in our communities. We have to make sure that we are aware of those predatory lending, predatory practices in regards to buying of property and we have to stay. So those are the things that we have to do in regards to gentrification. We have to know what it is. We have to know how it perpetuates itself, because those are the things that I would say the longtime residents, when they get moved out, they're not understanding the process of how it starts to occur, and they don't know the signs. So we've got to educate them. And then we also have to create those organizations, or we have to partner, assist, support,
30 seconds.
and advocate for those organizations that are doing the work, that are actually trying to reinvest and negotiate deals for better housing, like Africatown.
Thank you. Before we get to closing statements, I thought I'd throw in a fun question, which is Thanksgiving's coming up, and it's certainly not going to be what any of us are accustomed to given the pandemic. But I always think about, what's your favorite dish? For me, since I usually cook the whole meal, the thing that I look most forward to are the collard greens and the desserts. I'm a proponent of not just one dessert, but three. And it's usually a lemon soaked ginger pound cake, sweet potato pie, and chocolate mousse. So just a quick 30 seconds. Carolyn, did I give you that question about gentrification? I'm sorry.
When I answered the question of what's my favorite
About
dish that you can cook-
gentrification?
yeah, that you can cook for me.
No, I mean, did I allow you to address the question about gentrification?
No, you did not, but
I
was
am
going
so
to
sorry. I
address
just
it.
realized
That's
that.
okay.
Please forgive me. The issue of gentrification and
Yes,
and
I we have to access the resources that we have. Erwin is right. We have to educate, and we have to help those that are being impacted understand what it means when somebody offers you some money for your space. We have to, as the NAACP, we can address these issues through influencing the policies. We can also work and create the partnerships and continue to build on the partnerships that we currently have that are dealing with gentrification. Homelessness and affordable housing as a result of gentrification. And what we need to do is put ourselves in a place, in a way that we can influence those people that have the funds, that are doing the buildings, and the policymakers, and show up where those places are, working with the communities and the organizations that are on the ground, trying to change that around. Be more involved with them, get them the resources that they need, because that is not a resource that we necessarily would have, but we could work with them as the NAACP, putting our influence behind that
30 seconds.
policies, and behind them, or whatever is going on in terms of, if it's housing, if it's getting some subsidies for the for housing, etc. So I think that as NAACP, we do have a role to play in that gentrification reversal.
Thank you. So again, our last fun question is Thanksgiving. What are your one or two favorite dishes? And I'll start with Carolyn. Just 30 seconds.
Are you cooking it?
Possibly.
Oh, let's see. My favorite dishes. Well, of course, I love sweet potato pie, and I love peach cobbler, and I love dressing and gravy. But you can't cook that for me because my sister has to cook that.
Okay. Erwin, how about you?
You gave me 30 seconds, so I'm gonna say three things, because my mom's roast and the dressing and her greens, I'm spoiled. I can't even eat anybody else's hardly when it comes to that. So those are the three things. Oh, and the yams too. I mean, man, I'm gonna tell you, Mama Chappelle can put it down. Everybody knows that.
And how about you, Deontay?
Man, like literally, it made me so hungry right now, and I got top ramen up in here. I'm just like, man, but when I think about it seriously, it's like I cannot eat your food if you don't have good dressing. So it's dressing. Like dressing is like the lead. I'm gonna try your dressing, and everything else just might not even taste the same. So it's just I know I'm advocating right now, and I can't stress this hard enough. And I'm talking to you, community, that might be giving me a plate. If you got good dressing, give me a call. I mean, I know we're gonna be social distancing. You can wrap it up, put it in the mailbox, but it's definitely dressing. But even in the fact of that, just being around family, it sucks that I'm not gonna be around them this year. But just thinking about that dressing and family is just the main thing about Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Make me want to cry right now.
So before we give our final closing statements, I just want to remind people that the election is November 21st from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And if you've not received a ballot or you think you should have a ballot, please reach out through the email secretary at Seattle King County NAACP. Make sure they have your updated information in email and that you get your ballot and that you be able to vote for the candidate that you think should be leading the NAACP. That being said, we'll move on to closing statements for 1 minute, starting with Carolyn.
Started. I need your vote for president because I'd like to continue what I've already started, rebuilding this organization, recreating, and enhancing what we've already done and what we're doing. We all have agreed on the things that have been done. We're done well, the things that we have not done so well. But what we need is, under my leadership, I have developed and created many programs that address the community's needs. We can continue to do that by serving, finding out what else we need to do within our future needs and address them that way. I have brought stability to this organization, credibility to this organization, develop programs to help us during COVID times.
And thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deontay, 1 minute closing statement.
Yes. So you've heard everyone. And when it all comes down to it, it comes down to who showed up in the midst of the storm. Throughout the spaces of being on NAACP King County, I started as your LGBTQ chair. And then throughout that space, I've been around with being a soundboard within the spaces of community and board, with showing what resilience looks like. Now it's time to show you in the space of leadership, true leadership looks like. On October 21st, vote for me, not just because you're my friend. I need you to vote for community leadership. It's time to stop saying you're going to be there, and it's time to authentically show up. I thank you all, and if you got dressing, please inbox me. I'll leave my email at the bottom. It's deontaydamper.com as well. Thank you all.
Thank you, Deontay. And Erwin.
Okay, I think Deontay meant to say November 21st.
November 21st, yes.
Yes. Okay, so I want to end with this. You've had three candidates sit here and go through these different questions. And at the end of the day, it is going to be about who is there in the storm, who can persevere, who can take input, who can't. But one of the things we know is racism is the single most critical barrier to building coalitions for change. It's a conscious and systematically built social construct. And it can't be undone unless you understand what it is, where it comes from, and how it functions, and why it's perpetuated. The NAACP history has chronicled this in books, court cases, but the true movement lies in the hearts and actions of this multiracial, multi-generational army of everyday men and women who unite to awaken the consciousness of people. So I ask for you to vote for me so that we can galvanize together and not be divisive, not be critical, but supportive and inclusive, and we will remain vigilant in the mission until the promise of this America is made a reality for all Americans. So join with us and let's fight the good fight. Vote for me, please.
Thank you. I want to take this time to thank our three very different candidates for stepping forward and putting everything out there and giving us three very different options in terms of who will lead the organization. I certainly want to thank Allison and Omar for thinking of me and helping support me in moderating this forum, and for everyone who's taken these 2-hour time out to listen and be engaged. And I want to say thank you to everyone and good night.